Hello and welcome. Thank you for coming this afternoon. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and having just had a situation with my mom, which we might end up talking about a little bit, but we're going to talk about smart technology experts and how they can be valuable in living in place clients. My name is Jason Knott. I'm the editor of CE Pro, and I am honored to be moderating this panel discussion. Some of us in the industry, such as myself, have been around long enough that we remember there was a product at one point called Grand Care Solutions that targeted this channel. And it was probably 15 years ago now, I'm going to guess. It was quite a while ago. And it was targeting how this channel could work with helping, what at that point was really more narrowly defined as aging in place clientele. And it had all the bells and whistles, cabinet sensors, bed pressure sensors, motion sensors, communication activities for elderly patients, and it just didn't take off. For some reason it didn't work, and a lot of it had to do with the channel in terms of integrators realizing that there's a caregiver involved, realizing there had to be partnerships involved with nursing care, in-home nursing situation, or oxygen supply houses and things like that. So, but the thing that's interesting is that none of the demographics that were driving that technology to target this channel have changed. The population is still aging, and even more so, we have people who are able to live at home with disabilities, people who able to live at home with injuries that years ago they weren't able to do. So the dynamics for what drove that are still in place today. And that's what we're going to talk about as to why this is still a potentially very, very strong market. What I also want to mention is we want this to be interactive. So if you do have any questions, we have a microphone up here. Please, that'll be my cue to know to ask the question. Just come up and stand at the mic, and then as soon as we have a break, I will absolutely call on you. So, all right, so let's just jump into it. Let me introduce the panel. So with me, directly to my left, is Louis Delaware. Louis is the president and founder of the Living in Place Institute. Welcome, Louis.
Thank you.
We're going to find out a little bit more about exactly what the Living in Place Institute is. Next to Louis is Heather Sidorowicz, president and owner of Southtown AV in Buffalo. Go Bills.
Oh, go Bills. Go that Josh Allen. We're very excited to be the Super Bowl winners of 2023.
Yeah, I think that might happen. And last but not least, on my far left is Peter Cook, president and founder of Automation Design and Entertainment in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Hey, Peter.
Hey, thank you, Jason. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so first let's talk about, I kind of mentioned how this aging in place environment has become a much more broad environment, and that's really where the Living in Place moniker has come in. Louis, tell us exactly what the Living in Place Institute is.
Well, okay, so aging in place, everybody assumes that's going to be 65 plus. But the real thing happens is that children may be born with various challenges, whether physical or cognitive, and many times that's going to follow them all the way through life. So instead of just dealing with that one small demographic, we deal with the entire age spectrum. Okay? The things that those children need will change over time, but the other part of it is everybody has had some sort of temporary setback, a sprained ankle, a broken bone, because you did something a little foolish on your skis, your mountain bike, or whatever, to the circumstance that somebody may have had a bad car crash or a medical condition that caused them to perhaps lose an extremity, and all of a sudden the house is working against them. So the whole idea here is to be able to have that scenario played out for all ages. Be ready for it at any time.
So give us a little more specifics, because Living in Place, it's not just technology. You're into broad-based things, such as even just as things as widening doorways and things like that are necessary for people to live in place.
Absolutely. It's there's not that much of a price difference to make a home a living in place home versus just a standard home. And I say difference is about 1% to 2% more while you're doing it under construction. Okay? To do it later, it's either much more expensive or in some cases impossible. For example, my home, we're redoing my home, burned down in a fire last year, big wildfire. we're building it as a Living in Place Institute idea home. And what we're doing is we're lowering the home so that I don't have any steps up into the house, because that can be a real challenge for anybody in a wheelchair or walker or whatever, but it also makes it very easy for movers to come in because they're not having to go over a threshold, things of that sort. So a lot more things in regards to making the house work for you instead of the other way around.
So when we talk about the technology play, which is where the integrators come in, what sort of technologies or equipment are we talking about today that are part of a living in place environment?
Oh my gosh, it's this whole show here. I mean, it's so many different things that are available, like doors that open for you. You know, if you're in a wheelchair, that it senses you come up to it, the door opens. To be able to have smart appliances, like say a smart microwave, that you put the microwave, your packaged item in a barcode that has a barcode underneath the microwave oven. It reads it, says, okay, I know my microwave is 700 watts. Here's what I need to do to program it. Needs to do to program the oven based upon that item's recipe, if you will, for cooking. To, again, having to be able to maximize one's personal physical and cognitive endurance, stamina, instead of having to go to the kitchen to be able to turn the oven on. I can be anywhere else in the house. It's time for make dinner. I need to turn the oven on to 375 degrees, convection cooking. It lets me know when it's gotten there. Now I can come over at my convenience to be able to put whatever I'm making for dinner, put a thermometer into it, program it to be able to say, okay, I not want to know when it's at 140 degrees. I go away. It comes back to me to say, here, we're at about 135 degrees. You need to be ready to come get it. Again, it's to make your life easier.
Let me just throw out, like, the interface is probably a key element here. Voice control, I would assume touch panels that are of ease for people to be able to, as you say, manipulate the smart appliances and things like that. But I'm imagining interfaces is a key component of this.
The interface is a real key component of this, whether it's voice or touch panel for somebody in a wheelchair that may be mute, to be able to allow them to be able to control that entire environment very easily, very readily, and be able to have that feedback as to what's going on in their environment. I mean, it spans from lighting to cooking to what you do in your shower. You'll be able to have a shower. If you have a steam shower, some people may need that, to be able to turn it on 10 minutes before you get there, to have it ready for you, to be able to have other things like, you know, the typical garage door openers that are Wi-Fi, or in better cases be Cat 6 compatible, to be able to make certain, did we leave the house? Did we leave the garage door open? Or at nighttime, to be able to have it, make certain it shuts at 9 o'clock at night, because you may have forgotten to do that. I mean, it's so many different aspects of what you can do to be able to make that home so much easier for you.
All right, Heather, let me ask you about that from the interface standpoint, voice control. Do you see voice control as a key component here? And I'm assuming with a disabled person, and I don't want to highlight or specifically just point out a disabled person, but the voice control, somebody who is disabled is still, it's not going to necessarily, there's no adjustment that needs to be made in a voice system to be able to handle somebody who has maybe something wrong with the way they speak or something of that nature. How is voice control key in this environment?
I think voice control is and even will be key. I think that where we are today, so every Sunday my family gathers for dinner, and my parents, my kids, my sister, her kids, and my father, who was the founder of the company I now own, he will say, Alexa, dinner. And he's very proud of himself because at 73 years old, he's programmed Alexa to change the lights and turn on some music. But she doesn't always hear him, so now he's yelling, and I won't, for your sake, yell what he yells. It's not there yet, but the concept of what can be is astronomical. It's amazing. We're really still in the beginning of that digital revolution of what can be. I mean, already Alexa could make a phone call for you if you did fall, and she can hear you. And anyone who has that in their house, she's listening. It's impressive sometimes if you say, Alexa, I'm leaving, or turn off the music, and it's an Alexa that's far, far away. and it's not just Alexa, so that goes out to the internet, so that's part of it. Sonos came out with voice control, that's not going out to the internet, that's music only at this time. Josh AI, so we're really seeing the beginnings of what the abilities could be that will take us, I really think, to the next level for not just what we all do here, but that concept of living in place. Anyone who has children or young ones who would say, Alexa, play Baby Shark. I mean, think about that from a voice standpoint. That kid is not dictating, they're not saying that well. You know, they're saying that in their childhood voice, and she's figuring it out. And if you think that Amazon's not taking that information so that they can then use that for someone who has a voice issue, I would bet otherwise.
It's funny you say that with your dad, because my younger daughter, for some reason, I don't know if it's the pitch of her voice or whatever, but Alexa just cannot respond. Everybody else is perfect, but with her, it does not register on a consistent basis, which is interesting.
I always joke that when the robots take over, that they're gonna off him first because he's always yelling at her.
All right, so Peter, when you think of living in place or aging in place, what are some of the universal design concepts that come to mind when you talk to customers?
Yeah, I think the beauty of living in place versus aging in place is it really opens up our inclusiveness of our technology, that it can apply to so many different aspects of somebody's life. So whether it's somebody that has a visual impairment and we need to be able to find a way to help them be able to control and manage their house, or to be able to look after somebody with impairments, whether it's a young child and a parent and a family wants to be able to make sure they're safe and protected. There's so many different options available for us, and it's really just understanding the family and understanding what's the best approach that we need to make, and then also finding what's comfortable for them. I'll give an example to kind of piggyback onto what Heather said. My mom, she can't stand Alexa. She just has a hard time saying that word, and she said it never worked, and she would get so frustrated. She always called it a woman, and I don't know why but now Google, she can say Google it, she likes it. It's the same technology, but just done in a different way. And even for Josh, we've had a lot of clients that maybe have a speech impediment or have struggled with pronunciation because they come from another country. What's beautiful is with Josh, we can customize and spell things out phonetically. And there's so many things that we can do now to customize that experience, because sometimes things sound similar. So haul off and all off can sound very similar. And being able to, the off-the-shelf systems, that is going to be the same every time. But with some of the customization, we can kind of customize that for the client to phonetically sound that out for them and give them the experience, whether it's audio, video, lighting, whether it's security, safety. We can kind of tie that all in to not only protect them, allow them to function every day, and to give them a life. And that's what I really love, that term is kind of changing. And living in place just makes so much sense, because it is very inclusive, and it allows us to kind of use this technology to really give them an experience that helps them to live in place.
You mentioned security. I just want to piggyback on that for a second, because cameras have become so sophisticated, and the motion sensing capabilities, they can, I would assume, be programmed to detect falls or those sorts of things, lack of movement, those sorts of things that can send notifications. Do you see cameras as kind of I would say a key element, but a part of this solution?
Well, certainly the beauty of, there's a ton of sensors now that are wired or wireless. And that's really, I think, been the game changer from 10 years ago, is the wireless sensors that we have available to us now are just really profound and allow us to kind of help people live in place and help families with disabilities to be able to manage that a lot from a security standpoint. And then from a camera standpoint, the AI has certainly come where now they know the difference between a vehicle and a person, and they can utilize those trip lines, fall lines. There's all kinds of different things that we can utilize, whether it's something that's a wearable or whether it's something that's digital into the actual AI camera. Yes, absolutely. That's kind of a combination of both. But normally the times I've seen cameras used is more when there's a child or a senior that someone is trying to help look after, and they utilize that as a support.
So I'm going to add something to that. There's a unique product out there, that has little modules that plug into the outlets that actually look to see how you, as you walk through the house, how you disrupt the Wi-Fi that's there. And so it's able to do predictive analysis on that person to be able to say, Mom used to walk, it took her 10 seconds to go from point A to point B. Now it's taking her 25 seconds. Now it's saying, okay, maybe it's time for Mom to go see her doctor or a physical therapist, because if she's going that slow, there's probably something else happening with her regards to balance or gait or whatever. So there's some neat products out there that have that function.
Or it's saying Jason's been drinking again.
I'm not going to touch that one.
So Peter mentioned wearables. Heather, you see wearables as kind of a key element here. Tell us why you see that, and what kind of wearables? Watches?
So currently our wearable market is in a silo of its own. So I'm currently wearing the Oura Ring. The Oura Ring will monitor my sleep, how much REM sleep I'm getting. It will tell me in the morning, you know what? You need to chill out and don't do so much today. Or, hey, you're feeling great. You could totally exercise. These have come a long way. It's taking my blood, my oxygen levels. So I knew that when I had COVID back in February, I felt like I kind of had a coach with me, so that I was going to be okay. And then in May, I ended up having a crazy surgery. And I still felt that when I was left alone and I couldn't go up the stairs, I was being monitored in some way. Now, currently, that's just a silo, and only I have that information. But what happens when it's no longer a silo? What happens when my smart home system has connection to that, or the relative that I designate has that connection? Or when I go to the heart doctor on Monday, a cardiologist, and I can say, hey, not only do I not feel good, but here's my literal heart rate and my HRV balance from the last 6 months. These things are what I believe will be the next step. Apple, when they just did their last event, talked about health. It was all about, if you fall, the watch is supposed to be able to say, hey, did you just fall? And let me call 911. Or you were in a car accident, so let me call 911. This is the first, as I said before, it's the first step. So when these things start to not be siloed and can speak to each other, I think that's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle for both living in place and also for aging in place.
Yeah, if I recall, and I don't remember if it's Google or if it's an Apple device that can listen to your breathing while you're sleeping.
There's multiple different products, so I've done a few of those as well. I'm a big into the wearable market. One is you put it underneath your mattress, and so in between your box spring and your mattress, and it will tell you, again, how you slept, if you're snoring, and it can tell the different types of sleep you're getting. I actually think that the ring is like one step further. It's different than the watch because you charge it once a week. Amazon just announced a device that will live in your room, again, if you want to go down that road, that will also do the same thing. So without something you're wearing or is on your bed, and I don't know how they're doing this, but they're going to monitor that same idea, your breathing, and you might have, there's a great writer out there that we probably already know, I won't mention his name, but had huge breathing problems, and it ended up into very big health crisis problems. Had he known years before, he wouldn't be in the predicament he was today.
So Peter, let me kind of pivot here a little bit on lighting. Seems to be one of the key components here. We talk about human-centric lighting and the benefits of blue light and rose-colored light and those sorts of things to the effects it has on the human body. Where do you see lighting and human-centric lighting and lighting control as part of this living in place solution?
Well, certainly lighting gives us so much. We kind of forget how much information our body takes in from light. We talk about all these technical terms and these scientific terms, but the reality is lighting can make you feel comfortable. It can give you orientation. And it's important to do it in a way that helps you be able to navigate your home. And lighting can be for safety, it can be for aesthetics, but in specific with living in place, it really can set those scenes up so that as you walk into the space, that it knows how to prepare the space and light the space so that you can be able to prevent falls, that you can be able to be notified. Like, for instance, we had a client recently where a lot of times the systems are designed that when the doorbell is hit, that it can kind of chime over the speakers. Well, if somebody's hard to hearing, that doesn't do anything. And so being able to flash the lights now with it gives it orientation for both those that can hear and those that cannot. And so you can use lighting for notification, you can use it for safety, you can use it for navigation, and the scenes that can be done with today's lighting, and even the colors, you know, to wake up in the middle of the night, that it's not blasting them and blinding them, but maybe it allows them to stay in that sleep mode. So there's a lot of things that lighting is just going to continue to evolve, and I'm just so excited about what lighting can do for the living in place market, but in general for all of us, because there's a reason somebody's the light of the world, and certainly that's a big part of it. Comes through our eyes, and the light that we see can impact somebody's life and truly allow you to live in place.
And if you've walked the show floor, we're actually seeing more companies bring lighting to this market as well, which is really exciting. So I've already seen restaurants having some lighting, Snap EVs introducing some different lighting. So we're really in the beginning. We spend 90% of our time indoors right now, and there's some really cool science, which I'm sure you've known, that even the elderly, like without eating, they can help with the lighting that actually helps increase your appetite. I mean, there's some really cool stuff out there.
And along with that is obviously some people have seasonal disorders with the amount of light, right? Especially in the upper Midwest areas where, or Pacific Northwest, using lighting, and also with lighting as shading and tying in natural light with, you know, man-made light, and making those scenes to be able to help them feel better. Because when you can feel better, obviously that just impacts everything.
Yeah, one of the things that, you know, as one ages, like say you're 60 years of age, you'd actually need 3 times more illumination than you did when you were 20. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why you see many older people pulling their phones out at restaurants, because they can't see that the lighting is usually dim. The menu is printed on parchment paper with gray font in italics. All those things together work against that person. So in the past, you used to see people carry magnifying glasses. Now it's bringing the smartphone out, either turning the flashlight on or the camera to be able to see what's there. But again, and that gets even worse as you progress even older. So having brilliant lighting that can be dialed back down smart-wise makes a lot of sense.
So Peter, when we were prepping for the panel, one of the things I thought was interesting, you mentioned how that architects may not necessarily be the best collaborators when you're talking about a living in place solution. Tell us why you think that.
Well, I think architects are builders.
Builders.
Yes, okay.
Sorry.
All right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I think the architectural community does a nice job of understanding, you know, they ask the questions, and they try to get a good plan in up front, and I think that's why it's so important to bring a smart home integrator in to the architectural community up front, because we can help collaborate with them at solving some of the challenges that they're going to face. They're really good at understanding doorways and thresholds and heights and counters and, you know, accessibility and reach and so on, where we can also help them with motorization, where we can also help them, especially a lot of times these households are not just the one that has the specific handicap or the need, but also there's others that are living with them, and having that ability to work with them and just understanding controls and placement. And they're looking at code so often, they're not looking at function. And as we get into lighting, so often we talk about how the community, the builders and the architectural community, they focus on geometry, where we really focus on humanity. And I think that is a huge difference for living in place, is that they're just thinking oh, look at how those line up. They're not looking at, hey, I'm actually doing all my cutting over here. I need lighting here. Or somebody's doing their makeup, and why are they kind of cocking their head and trying to get it so they can get the right light? Well, light that properly, and you can address those things. Well, so I just think the building community is a little farther past where you need to be to design a home well. But certainly the building community, I think that they're starting to accept more and more technology. I think they've just been a little bit of a deterrent to technology. And I think it's just because they like black and white, and technology, there's just so many options, and they look at it as complexity. but really it's about we understand experiences. And the term smart is used too much, I think, in our world right now. Everything is smart. No, smart is when you take multiple things and everybody's working together at how to make things better, where a connected device is just simply that, a connected device. So understanding those terms, and then just understanding that the more that we can do to design a system up front and understand the full of the needs of the family, that's really where we can have the most success. And it's just about working in a collaborative environment versus a coordinating environment. And that's where I think the architectural community does a better job of, they want all the experts and they want to bring them together into a great design team, and let's get this drawn up and then let's go execute. Where by the time it gets to the builder, if a lot of those questions aren't there, they just look at us as roadblocks that we are going to create more work for them, or they're going to have to redo things or have more meetings because they just want to execute. So it's just not that they're bad, it's just understanding where good design should come is in the architectural community typically.
I'd be curious to find out demographically, by profession, how many builders and how many architects are at this show. Okay? Because this is where you would learn how to deal with connected technology to be able to make it work for everybody. And I'm going to guess it's a real small number.
So Louis, I'll just throw out there that there hasn't been notoriously, and we're getting better. So I got to go to the KBIS show, and now I'm seeing, Kohler's here, Hunter Douglas is here. So these are the first steps or continued steps to start to get all of us around the same table, and it's super exciting to see. But I completely agree, we need to have so many more of these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I can ring on this real easily because my architect, great architect, but when it comes to lighting design, I said, no, we're using a lighting specialist for our home to be able to make certain it works for us, because that person knows more. The architect's the generalist. These other people are the specialists that I have working on our home.
So to Peter's point, building your new home, coming back from the fire, you worked with the specialist architect. What was the response or the reaction from the builder when you brought the living in place concepts to him on the construction?
Well, I did the smart thing at the front end when I selected the architect and the builder. We also have 2 certified master kitchen bath designers from the NKBA, plus this lighting specialist. We had a big meeting together before we even started doing anything and said, hey, everybody here okay working with each other, knowing that we have a preeminent staff of, specialists working for us. And so, the builder's like, you know what? You know this better than I do in regards to what needs to be done from lighting. And the architect saying, you know what? From a kitchen and bath design, you know this better than I do. And so it's like, my way I look at this is, you go to a doctor when you have, say, a bad cold, okay? And they say, okay, I'm going to prescribe this for you, take that cough medicine, whatever. I go to the doctor, I've got a real pain in my neck, and it's not my wife. And they'll say, well, look, I need to get you off to a spine specialist or somebody else, because that's what these people are all like. They're specialists, and that includes system integrators. We've got a wonderful system integrator that we are working with on our home to basically make certain we're doing it so it works properly across the board. The only thing I want Wi-Fi for is for my mobile phone.
So Heather, we've been talking a lot about new construction. Is a living in place environment feasible in a retrofit home, an existing home? Is it? I'm sure it's feasible, but is it just way more difficult, or is it not that difficult?
So I think that it depends on how far we're going. No, I take that back. I think it's absolutely feasible in retrofit as well. It's just a different way of looking at it. From a technology aspect, I mean, most of all the residential we've ever done has been retrofit. So we've come a long way just in, we can get wires anywhere, right? We have that way to do that. And then from a construction standpoint, just if you're remodeling your kitchen, it's just looking at, as Louis was saying before this program, instead of a dishwasher being all the way down to the ground, if it's held up higher so that someone who can't reach down can get to it. So absolutely can be retrofitted. It's just about having that conversation in the beginning.
Yeah. I don't want to let the time pass because I think one of my last questions was going to be, where do you get started? So, Louis, let me tee you up. You have a couple of certifications through the Living in Place Institute that are good places for integrators or individuals, contractors in general to get started. Tell us quickly about those.
Sure, there's two different programs. One we look at as to the professionals. It's 16 hours of class time. It's geared towards designers, architects, kitchen bath designers, interior designers, system integration designers, because they need to know these things, along with people involved in construction, all the way to medical professionals. That's the Certified Living in Place professional program. That program is all on demand. Okay, then there's another program for the people who are doing trade specialists, including system integrators, the people who are actually doing these things, to understand what is being specified, why it's being done this way, because in many ways we're turning the head on how construction is being done to have, say for example, instead of having outlets down here where it may be difficult for somebody in a walker to use, put the outlet where they can easily get at it. It's like, well, we've always done it this way. We need a change.
We've
So
done
that
that.
program, that program is a home and accessibility trade specialist. It's only 5 hours on demand, but it covers some of the things that we do in the big program, but not in as much depth.
And the website URL for people to get more information on those two certifications?
Sure, it's the Living in Place Institute. That livinginplace.institute.
Livinginplace.institute.
Correct.
Okay. All right. If there's any questions, not any questions from the audience, if I could get a round of applause for the panel, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yep.
Thank you.